This is his pre-roll. It's just playing the movie. The desktop audio is, well, no, it's not that high. Um, yeah, so we don't have a pre-roll right this stream time because we're on Austin's computer, and oh boy, the technical difficulties of today have been numerous, and this is one of the most technically difficult streams. What? What? Too loud? I'm too loud?
I
Oh, you're okay. Well, all right.
I didn't do a thing. Oh well.
Oh, you want to turn down the gain? It's in the back.
No, it's not what I wanted.
Oh, you're listening to me, and I'm too loud for you.
No, I'm hearing both the mic pickup and it again through the desktop.
Oh, just turn off the monitor. Yeah, see, so things are numerous today. What ended up happening was tragically, apparently his master files for Reaper, which is the program that he composed the entire score in, were saved to OneDrive and not to his actual computer because Windows 10 is shit and does that by default and wants you to think that you want your files on the cloud for some reason. And OneDrive just wiped itself at some point. And we have lost all of the master files for Detroit Evolution, which is very sad. We, of course, still have all of the final, versions for the soundtrack and stuff. We still have the music, but we don't have his actual files that actually lay out all the different tracks and stuff. The music is no longer editable in any way. So what we're going to do is walk more through the theory portion of this and more so than the actual technical side. And honestly, I don't know how much you kind of had planned for the technical side anyway, because I think the theory is more accessible.
Yeah, there's just a couple things, but we can.
But we've also got the synthesizer set up, and getting them to be able to be heard by you guys was also complicated. So what we've ended up doing is just making it so we can hear them like ambiently through the speakers, and then you'll be able to hear them through the microphone. It's not going to be like super crisp and high quality or anything, but you could at least hear what the different synths sound like and what kind of vibe they make. No, Simona, you're not late. We didn't have a pre-roll, but we're just kind of getting set up, getting started, showing off everything that we got going. So you can see from this webcam over here that we've got a couple of the synths on the side here, and then there's other synths over here. I think we've got.
You can move. You can show.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, like I can totally move this. So I don't know if you want to like.
You don't need to see my.
You don't need to see your insurance information. No, let's not. So I don't know if you want to walk through like what each of these are, and which ones you actually used for the movie. I know some of them you didn't touch.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't use quite that many in this movie, even though I wanted to, because I didn't have a good way of doing them. This is a drum machine. I'm not fond of it. I think I'm going to get rid of that one and replace it with something else. This is our favorite.
Oh, I don't really hear that much. I only hear that through your headphones, I think.
It's not through my headphones.
It's just really quiet.
Um.
There we go. How do you make it sound bwah bwah?
I don't know. You keep saying.
There you go.
You can crank it.
There you go. So this is the Moog Sub Fatty, which is similar to the Moog Voyager, which Nima Fakara used on.
You got a similar engine in them.
Yeah. So although his, there you go. That might be blowing out the Blue Yeti.
It
They'll
just
have
goes
to.
up to yellow. That's fair.
But yeah, that's a good volume, I think. Right. So that does have kind of that Connor vibe to it, right? That has kind of that that.
Yeah, we play around with little knobs on there while we're go in and get the noises.
Well, I remember with Detroit Awakening, I was just like, just use the Moog. Just Moog it up because that's what Nima used, and we want to get that vibe. And I don't know how much you used it for Evolution. I know you used it, but I don't know if you used it as much.
I used it a couple times.
I'm such a child. I just play with that dial all the time. This is cosplay.
This is a fun dial up here too. This is our favorite dial.
Yeah.
Now you're not going to be able to hear like the actual sound that ends up in the movie because it goes through a reverb.
Yeah.
But in order for me to get the reverb, it has to go through the computer.
Yeah,
and if it goes through the computer, you can't hear it.
Yeah, no, it's been baffling trying to get any of this sound to stream. This is the most technically difficult stream we have ever done. But yeah, so the Moog Sub Fatty's awesome. This is my favorite synthesizer that Austin has. And I've loved it since he got it because it sounds really cool and it is really similar. It's got that DBH sound right out the gate. Wake Up After Life says interesting beanie.
Oh yeah, it's spiky.
So somebody says it has a Muse vibe. I definitely, it's got that progressive rock kind of sound.
Everybody loves a Moog.
Yeah. Well, Moog is, I mean, yeah, everybody.
Trent Reznor says that he'll replace everything except for his Moog. Everything is the Moog.
So, what about, I know this was a big game changer for you.
We'll come back to that at the end.
We'll come back to this at the end. You've got mixers down here. You've got the saxophone controller. We'll talk about that later. You've got a mod. I don't think you used the modular synth. I thought you got that after.
I got it during.
Okay.
Because it showed up on a used website really quite cheap for what it is.
Well, it's also a briefcase synth, which it's a deadly synth.
Yeah, it's important for me. Currently, it's actually patched into the other guy.
It's patched into Greed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for Seven Deadly Synths, that's a spoiler over there. The reason that Korg MS-20 is gold is because we modified it for Seven Deadly Synths to make it into the Greed synth. But it is still a functional synthesizer, even though he took the piano part, or the keyboard part off of it. And so I don't think either of those got much play, though.
They were going to get used for Ada's stuff, but it ended up not happening.
Oh, got it. You haven't touched the Korg mini log in a while. This was your first synthesizer.
Yeah.
The entire score for Live Scream was done on that Korg mini log, because that's all you had at the time.
Yeah, I think like 100%.
100%. Yeah, there wasn't anything else you had.
Not even much else. Like, I didn't even have a good computer, like, mixer or anything. It went through the amp.
And now you have all this, and you're still like, oh, I can't compose anything.
That's true.
So I think you did some stuff with the. I think you dusted off the mini log for Evolution.
I did. I don't know if anything got used from it though. It was more of an inspiration machine because it's just like you turn knobs. It's very accessible. Knob per function is what everybody like yells about in the synth world.
Got it. And then this is the redheaded stepchild that took a long time to grow on me. Detroit Awakening is what made me appreciate this one, because at first I was like, ugh, it sounds too 80s. Like I don't dig it.
It doesn't though.
But you convinced me. You were able to pull some really cool stuff out of this. This is the Novation Peak, which has anything in Detroit Evolution that sounds kind of robotic. Anything that sounds kind of like angry robot noises. Anything that sounds kind of cyberpunk. Probably came out of this, because this instrument has a lot of that kind of stuff going for it.
It's used probably the most in Detroit Evolution, because I used one patch constantly, somewhere in there.
Was it a custom patch or was it a preset?
I marked most of the things that I edit with DA if it was for Detroit Awakening, when I was doing stuff. A lot of it didn't get used, but I came back to it and
Got it.
and used them.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you'll see that we're going to talk about today are things where we originally had stuff from Detroit Awakening to kind of pull from.
That got used a lot.
What is this? Pluck Me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was probably the Zen Garden, right?
That was used a lot.
Yeah, okay.
But then you'll like play around with stuff and try to.
Well, let's see what this sounds like. Do you have a way of playing something fun?
Yeah. While we're talking about, why don't you show how to play stuff through it? That's where we can come back to here.
Okay.
So, all of the synths are plugged into here right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if I pick, depending on which of these rainbow colors I pick, it tells which synth to go. This is MIDI route 1 to channel 2. We go to scale.
And you're playing that through the peak.
Yeah, that sounded very Disney, didn't it?
Yes, yes. So that's the Pluck Me preset.
Yeah.
Yes, you did use that a lot in Detroit Evolution, I can tell.
Yeah. So plucks are easy to use. They kind of have a almost synthy sound, but almost classical sound, so that's kind of why it gets used so much. It was really easy to just like write out stuff on that, and I was like, oh, I'll change that later because it's a easy, like, just ambiguous sort of sound, and then I'm like, no, I kind of like it.
Wake Up After Live asks, is Seven Deadly Synths based on Austin and his love for synths? Yes. Yes. Most of the dialogue between Seth and his partners in that film is based on conversations that we have had, as Austin yet again tells me that he bought another synthesizer and I yell at him. So indeed, this is his shrine. Now there's this thing down here that got unceremoniously moved because we needed space on the counter. But I think you used this a little.
I just brought this with me in my backpack so that I could play with things while we were at
conventions. Yeah.
This is a bass line. Sounds a lot like it's a TD3 because it's cheap right now. Analog bass, and it's through Behringer. I don't want to say too much about them as a company.
Yeah, they're a little problematic, but yeah. So that does only bass line stuff.
No, you can use it for whatever you want.
All right.
But it's another just one note at a time. Kind of not great, but that's what gives it character, sort of synth.
Okay, so let's, now that we kind of see like what these synthesizers actually are, and kind of what the setup he's got going on, we can maybe look at Reaper and just sort of show theoretically like what you would do with let's see. Yeah, we just switched to Reaper. So Reaper is the program that everything is composed in. So you see that there's multiple track lines, and then there's also the film in the bottom right-hand corner. So what happens is he can play the film in real time and then compose, usually on this guy, on the pad here.
Yeah, so I'm going to see how well this goes. I think...
You might not be able to... You might be able to hear the actual film. I don't know.
Let's see.
I want to be close to you, but
it's the desktop audio, so
everything you need.
it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I can hear it through your headphones. Cthulhu Curry, I always wanted to invest in a synth. This is the reviving that I need. Well, I'll tell you, they're not that expensive. I mean, depending. So, look, I can kind of walk you through. So the Korg Mini Log, that was his first synth over there. That probably goes about $400 now.
You could probably get it less. Like, this is old. They've made a new version of it that has some digital effects built into it.
Because this was 2 years ago, and that was $500 2 years ago, and it goes on sale a lot. So that one's a good starter synth.
It's a great starter synth. People are really pushing the XD right now because it's the newer one and it's got digital stuff in it. But in 10 years, 15 years, this is going to be something that you hear in all of the like hip hop stuff. This is going to be a classic synth in the future.
So that one's pretty good. The Korg MS-20 was like $350.
Yeah, those are good too.
But I don't know if you would start with that though.
Um, it's probably a pretty good start. It's a monophonic. It only does one note at a time. You can set this to do one note at a time. So this is the best way to start.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want something that doesn't have any memory, if you just like really want to, if you're a tweaker, that's where you go.
Okay.
That's a good starting place for that.
The Sub Fatty was a little more expensive. This was like 800, 900, something in that.
I think they're like $650 now.
Oh, that's not bad.
They've upgraded this to a new version also.
The thing about the Sub Fatty though is that it's really not a beginner's. You kind of have to know what you're doing with it.
Yeah, it's tricky. I think they call it a Sub 25 is the new version, which has a little bit like upgraded stuff, and that's now going for $800 something. It's got limited memory, but it's all very analog. The thing that kind of drew me to that was if it breaks, I can take it apart and fix it again. Where anything that's got a screen is kind of like, well.
Joe says, sweet, now Reaper is here. I can say I'm studying and not procrastinating.
Yeah, Reaper is great. It's not expensive. And right now, if you're working from home because you're stuck at home, you can get a temporary license for free.
Oh, that's cool. Because I think you paid like $70 for the license.
Yeah, $70 whole for a license. That is so freaking cheap.
Yeah. And so the other option for a DAW, which is what this program is called, is Ableton, and that's like, or Pro Tools, I suppose.
There's all sorts of them. You can do Cubase, Cubase, depending on how you want to say it.
I mean,
Steinberg,
Ableton and Pro Tools are kind of the two that I've heard the most. You tried Ableton once. It's like an $800 program, and you didn't like it.
It didn't. I have to be able to play a video in it. If it doesn't do that well, then it's not going to help me much.
Yeah, Simona asks, does this mean that Austin composed the music by watching the movie? Yeah, essentially.
Yeah,
multiple
so
times.
That's one of the things I kind of want to show off. This is rather fresh. There's not much markup on this. But
this was the only file that we managed to preserve, was the rooftop.
And that's kind of by accident for that.
Yeah, by accident, yeah.
So...
Yeah, I know.
So when big events
After the
happen,
raid yesterday, I think
I'll
nicotine
throw
is
in
the last
a
thing we have to
marker.
worry about.
We survived.
Particularly like
And I think I'll be
where
alright
Michelle's
as long as I
decided
got a
to
coordinator looking
put
out
in a
for me.
cut.
Which I tend to edit at like 108
Good
beats per minute,
processing.
you've noticed.
These past few days.
Like, I tend to edit
it's all happened
at
so
a
fast.
rhythm.
You
have
edit
no
at a
chance to
rhythm. It changes depending on the feel of the
anything.
scene.
Not intentionally.
Yeah,
It's just my brain.
I mean, there's a feel to it.
Yeah.
Heard that one before.
Of
If
course
you want to
not.
make
I-
like an anxious movie, you ignore that feel.
close to you, but I can't
So-
do
God,
everything
I've
you
never
need.
imagined editing a movie intentionally bad to create a sense of anxiety.
That's Jaws.
Oh. Man, I gotta watch Jaws now.
Yeah, she edited it and she was like, every time I felt like cutting, I didn't.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That would make me anxious as an editor. I'm gonna have to look at that.
So I'll put out like these markers and everything looks wrong. Then I'll go to things got a little moved around.
Make your webcam a little smaller if you wanna, because we can't see. Actually, you could probably turn that one off for now. Just you can put the little
Yeah,
eye.
I've just lost the mouse.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there you go.
So I will play around with this number. Like 120 is a typical place to start. But you can see everything shifts, and when everything shifts close to where it's in line with my markers, I know that's a safe beat to edit to.
Okay.
So I try to ignore my internal clock and just see where like visually things are changing. And I'll put in little markers and I'll try to get it so that it lines up with like major beats. So that's how it's one of the reasons why I wait until you're done editing before I do much.
Yeah, and just so they know this is our process. I edit the film and get something called a rough cut, which is basically just a layout of the film, of the basic edit of the film. We watch that together just to see if we like the film. I go back, I fix it, I tweak it more, and then I get what you call a picture lock, which is the locked video version of the film, and I can still swap out different versions of the lines here and there. I can still add sound effects and stuff later. The sound isn't done, but the visual, the timing of the movie is locked. There will not be any changes in the length of a scene. There won't be any changes in the length of a line. That is done. Once I do that, that goes to him, and that's when he can start composing. So you didn't start composing because I didn't have Picture Lock till February, I think.
Something like that.
Well, I had Picture Lock in February, and then you started composing like mid-March.
Something
It's
like that.
probably more accurate.
Well, you gave me the first 45 minutes.
That's right.
And I worked on the first 45 minutes for a while, and I didn't get very far with it until you finished the rest of it.
Yeah, because you don't really compose linearly. I think you started. What was the first scene that you composed? I remember we started you off with something real easy.
I think it was probably something with, I know I did the protester scene pretty early.
That was pretty early, yeah.
I didn't like how it was until I went back after doing a lot of other stuff, so it's kind of like I lay down something rough, then I go to something else, then I go to somewhere else, and then I go back and I'm like, okay, let's sand it down. And
I remember the DPD stuff with like Tina in the break room, like that was pretty early. All of the kind of ambient stuff was sort of early. I know
once you finished it, I went pretty quickly into things that had the Reed 900 theme, though, because I already knew what that theme was supposed to be.
Right. So the Reed 900 theme that is shown in the first kiss scene, it's shown in this love scene, it's in the moment that they hold hands for the first time. It is, it's actually in their first DPD scene together underneath the flirtation between them as they're going over the case. Where else is it? It's in the scene where it's in the moment where Nines leans into Gavin's shoulder as they're on the couch together and looking at the tablet. That motif is from Detroit Awakening. It is at the end of the movie when they're on the balcony together and Gavin gives Nines his name. That is where that motif was originally from. I love that motif. It was inspired by Arctic Monkeys, their song "I Want to Be Yours," and just the kind of guitar sound of Arctic Monkeys. So we recycled that into this film, and it became the love theme for Reed 900. So if you watch the movie over and over, you can hear it multiple times through the film because it is very intentionally put in moments of love between the two of them. But the first time you really, really hear it is when they hold hands. I mean, it's hinted here and there through the score beforehand, but the first time it's completely featured is that moment that they hold hands, because it's a big moment. It's a big turning point where their relationship is not understated anymore, but comes to the top. So, continue.
So, something I was going to show, and you can... Maybe we'll put the camera back on for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show a little bit of what I might do to
Actually compose
something. It's not going to sound great.
Yeah. No, this is just riffing.
But, so hypothetically, I've changed the BPMs to match this movie, and now I would want to throw in some rough tracks. So...
You still have your MIDI, I think, enabled in this, don't you? I thought I saw it earlier.
I don't know where it's all got to be routed properly.
Oh, got it.
And
Yeah,
since
word.
we've
Yeah,
done
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, okay.
So, one of the things I do to get...
the mouse is just hiding.
So, here we go. On this, I can set it to scale.
Mm-hmm.
I can then pick a scale that I want to work in, and I can adjust how high or low in that scale. I can hold Shift and change the key, and that'll stop me from playing wrong notes.
Okay, so it's got auto-tune.
So then I'll just like play around a little bit. That's a little too much reverb. So let's just go with that.
Okay.
So I might just like play around and come up with something that I think, that sounds kind of like what I want to do.
This is so intentional, this whole process, I can tell.
Yeah, I know. It'll kill me.
After the raid yesterday, I think nicotine is the last thing you have to worry about.
We survived. Like always. And I think I'll be alright as long as I got a Terminator looking out for me.
So for some reason that doesn't look right, but
Were you not recording?
looks like I was recording audio instead, which is not what it's supposed to be doing. I don't go away, people. So let's see, what did I do? This is input, MIDI, squid, all channels.
Yeah, this is called a squid, which is fitting because we're octopunks.
Let's just delete that and you're armed. Record.
Yeah, I know. It'll kill me.
After the raid yesterday, I think nicotine is the last thing you have to worry about.
Nothing.
So I don't know where it went, but it recorded, so that's something.
This is just one of those side effects of having to reroute his entire system in order to do this stream.
I think I know what the problem is.
Um,
If I go to preferences, and that opened up over here.
don't lose your mouse again.
Mousey.
I'm gonna look at the chat and see if there's any questions.
MIDI device.
Gavin's just like, why am I hearing boss music? Imagine if at one point Gavin or Nines looked up and was just like, does anyone hear synthesizer?
I'm guessing I have something plugged in wrong.
That's probably it. Yep.
So I'm not gonna obsess over it.
Yeah.
But those notes would be in there.
Yeah.
And in theory, if I typed them out manually, they should still show up, but I don't know what's going on right now.
Well, it won't be recording, but you could you get the impression from the live that would have recorded, and so this is what he did. He basically just watched it and would just kind of riff, and that would be a starting point for things, and so this would be laying out a MIDI, right? So you could change the voice.
Yeah. So what would be nice if it was doing anything, and I could show you, is that you would see the notes pop up in the field here.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I would do is go in and I could quantize it to push it more in time if I got off of time.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that I was like just really bad about, I could delete it, throw it away, it's gone.
Yeah, but you could also, in theory, change it to come out of the Moog if you wanted to.
Yeah, I can redirect it to a different instrument.
Mm-hmm.
I can change it.
Yeah.
I can move it all up an octave. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's some things that are really hard to do, so I don't do them. But
So one thing that is demonstrable of this is that you completely cheated at one point with this song. Because this song in the rooftop is just the reunion song in a different voice. Because the reunion song was in violin, and this is in electric guitar.
so this is the MIDI file for it.
So you, in theory, could play around with that,
I don't know where the MIDI would go.
right?
Um,
You might be able to change the sample.
It doesn't have an effect on it. right now, but I could, in theory, hopefully this doesn't break anything, go into my instruments and open Contact, maybe? Okay. That might not have been the best choice because that's a pretty heavy duty thing to open.
So what is this?
Open.
Do you have a favorite chord progression or scale that you like to compose with, or like a major or minor theme?
The reason it wasn't opening was because it was on the other screen.
Yep.
So we can grab you and
Other side.
pull you in. So now we can go into instruments. Favorite chord progression? I don't know. And as far as like keys or scales to play in, it really depends on what the feel is.
Mm-hmm.
Minor keys are generally easier to use.
I tend to favor them as the director.
They just they are more emotional,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just good emotions, bad emotions. They're generally easier to use for that purpose. But yeah, let's.
So move that more to the center because you're behind the webcam.
They don't need to see everything.
So this is your Cinestrings sample pack,
Yes.
which was bought. You got it on sale, I think, during.
I got it on like a 70-something% sale.
But it was still like $500.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good samples are expensive. That's just the truth. And samples is basically like you do the MIDI file, you electronically lay out your notes, and you can play digitally any instrument from your sample pack. So you can have like your digital violin, you can have your digital cello.
So let's see.
Do you hear anything?
Yeah, I know. It'll kill me.
After the raid yesterday, I
don't.
think nicotine is the last thing
Even
you have
if
to
that's
worry
on solo?
about.
It should be somewhere.
Your poor files are just a mess after that OneDrive nonsense. Should fucking sue Windows for that. That's just awful. Like, not only did you not want to use OneDrive or even realize you were, but the fact that it just was like, oh, we're just gonna erase all that without telling you is just awful.
There's probably something wrong about how it's monitoring. Which is a little bit of a shame. Let's see if I can. This is the problem right here.
Oh,
The
you found
MIDI needs to be on Omni, or at least on the right channel. But I had it on channel 1, and I wrote that music on a different channel.
Okay.
So, my goodness, everything is just so big.
You need a mouse.
No,
and everything is so big. Your resolution's really
It'll
high.
kill me.
After the
Looks
raid
like it's
yesterday.
playing.
So, you got the.
I'll take your word for it, because I can't. Oh, okay. So this is violin.
They're like little plucked violins. here.
Right.
So, as you can see, that was just a blank MIDI, didn't have anything on it. I said, let's be plucky violins.
Mm-hmm.
And it became plucky violins. And it was good.
So what was it originally? The electric guitar?
That's just MIDIs, that's just notes. I didn't have a good way of doing electric guitar, so I went to guitar and you are back in the wrong place.
You have to hit that. Yeah. So many windows. So many fucking windows.
And
So did you like modify an existing plugin for this?
so I went and I bet that got deleted too with my OneDrive, which is funny in a sad sort of way. I made a. This will. Where'd it go? I don't know why you're blooming at me.
Because you have another window you gotta.
Where?
I don't know. Check your start bar.
Okay, we'll just say okay right now. Why?
This is such a deviant program.
Guitar rig.
There you go.
And I made my own at some. Is that it? No, but that's not even going to be close to what I want to hear. So yeah, here's a cheesy metal rig here.
Yeah, sure. If you ever want a cheesy 80s metal guitar under the scene,
So that's how I turned the some.
it's so loud.
It's a little loud, yeah.
There you go.
So that's plucked violins being turned into through guitar effects to make it sound more like a guitar.
Wait, so that is the violin through a guitar rig. That's
Yeah.
not just guitar.
No, that's the violins going through a guitar effects setup.
Interesting.
So what I did was I used my pluck over here,
Uh-huh.
and it was the same pluck that was used before, but it was going through a guitar rig.
Interesting.
And if you want to see just how cheaty I get, how cheap and obnoxious, we can go to. You can let go of that microphone, that headphone.
Oh.
Yeah, here we go. How to sound
Like
like
Arctic Monkeys.
And we go down to what sort of things do we need? Okay, an OCD. That's not something that I've got. So we go down to the bottom, and it kind of gives you an idea. And then I would look up these and figure out what. So this is Deja Vibe. So that's a vibe reverb, and I would just use that in the guitar rig.
Doyle Winchester says, we do be raising the roof.
So things like this, if you want to sound like someone else, just look up what they use.
Interesting. So this is like their amp settings.
This is their like guitar plugins, like pedals.
Got it.
So that's what the guitar rig is. It's just a bunch of digital pedals.
Yeah. So the fact that some people have asked, like what type of piano and stuff used and all this stuff. There is not a single real instrument used in this film. I don't believe.
I beg your pardon.
Okay. Synths are real instruments, dear. Didn't mean to offend you. I mean, there was no actual piano. There was no actual violin. There was no actual guitar. It's all completely synthesized. It's synthesizers made to sound like guitars. It's violin samples. It's all of that. And a lot of times you have to be very careful with things like that because especially strings can sound awful in samples. The computer generated violins can sound very, very ugly and gross. But I think that between having a very expensive string pack that is very high quality and also putting enough effects and stuff on it, you managed to make it sound pretty good.
Yeah, so something about the pianos, like, I might use a grand piano, sure, why not? Then we go to the edit. So this shows where the microphones were when they collected the sound packs. You can move them sometimes.
Interesting.
it shows you the type of microphone. You can edit the EQs. So this is where like a good sound pack comes from, is that they used hundreds of microphones playing each note in isolation multiple times, and then it'll go through and it's like if you had 5 times that the note was being played, and then you start playing it, it'll randomly select one of those 5 notes each time of the same note to avoid it sounding like it's playing the same recording each time. Because when you play the same recording each time, it sounds terrible.
Yeah, it sounds completely fake. It's kind of the same principle of like Siri or any artificial voice, Microsoft Sam or Alexa, where if the syllables that they say are just the same over and over, it sounds completely canned. It sounds like fake. Now, the other element of what you're talking about comes down to this, and this is kind of where we can talk about.
Yeah, we can talk about this now.
So this squid pad is a controller, yeah, but that's not the only controller that you used.
No. And if you want to have... The best way to sound like an instrument is to play the instrument as if it were that specific instrument. So, where... If you want to sound like a piano, you play your keys like a piano.
Yeah.
If you want to sound a drum, you want to hit pads like a drum.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to sound like a saxophone, you want to play on a saxophone. But since I don't really have a digital violin and they just don't exist.
Well, I think for you it's more a matter... So you have a keytar beside you, which a keytar would be a keyboard controller. So a keytar is what you would use if you wanted to basically input a piano sort of, track.
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted a piano, I would use the one upstairs because it's got weighted keys and it'll play like a piano.
And so you have a Casio. But
these keys are kind of sticky, so it's kind of on or off.
I think your biggest issue is that you're not confident in your piano playing abilities. But you are a very skilled saxophone player. The saxophone is the instrument that you're most proficient at. So as far as actually trying to sound like an instrument or being able to sound... Okay, that's cool.
I was wondering why it was quiet. It's because it had a plug in it.
But that's not hooked up to any of the synthesizers right now.
It is hooked up into the computer.
Okay.
And in theory...
In theory, we'll see if this theory works out.
If I... Let's go back down.
Just get a new track going.
And go over here.
Mute your heavy metal bullshit.
I have. So... Still not doing it. Something's not set up right. I don't have time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Things aren't right. But in this view, at the bottom here, you can see stuff like pitch, velocity, volume. All of these things are going to change on this depending on how much breath I'm using, how quickly I force the air out, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And even like my mouth, my embouchure, how that's affecting on the reed will warp the notes just a little bit. It gives it all of those natural feelings, which I learned was a bad problem in the case of when I tried to use a MIDI from this and use it on a piano track, because all of the piano keys the notes were bending, and pianos don't have bending notes.
Right.
That's a weird thing to hear, is every time they hit it, it goes slightly out of tune.
Because you don't use breath support on a piano, so it sounded strange.
Yeah, a piano, you hit the key, the hammer hits the string, and it rings out.
Could you potentially do that intentionally to make it sound odd?
Yeah, it sounds like a weird, warped piano that...
But this was not that type of movie. Maybe for a horror film later.
Like, for a piano that's in a very hot room, and those strings are starting to warp.
Okay.
That's kind of what it sounds like.
Okay. But it's great for something like a violin.
Like, you can't make a piano get louder as the note sustains.
Yeah.
Whereas a violin, you can pull harder on the bow to make it louder. So that's something that the saxophone controller does really well.
Because, again, with the canned strings, when you have violin notes that are plucky, that just kind of don't fade into the next note because there's no actual human controlling it, it's just sample, 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 kind of all strung up in a row, you can overcome that obstacle with this, because when you're using the breath support to be able to put in the input to write the music onto the computer, and then you change that track to a sample violin, you have those fades written into the actual music. So that's one of the reasons as well why his violin tracks sounded a lot better than a lot of digital violins do, because of this controller, I think.
And this one has decent built-in sounds. They don't sound good through the single speaker here.
Yeah.
But they sound good when you record them. They sound okay. Not nearly like the one that I have, which is recorded on the Sony soundstage. So it sounds like Sony's recording studio, because it is. This sounds like some room somewhere.
Yeah.
But I will play on an instrument that's set up close to it so I can monitor what I want it to sound like eventually. So this is a string section, and it's not going to sound great because it's got settings that I need to change. But
I mean, it's pretty close to the actual version that made it into the film.
yeah, and in the opening, I had this set on either a bass clarinet or a bassoon. I think I went with the bass clarinet. And I left that in there and then layered another bass clarinet on top of it, which gives it a more full sound. And it's another variety in the notes that are being played. So it doesn't sound like the same recording being played because it's two different recordings. So it's all about how much can you stay like how you want to sound, but completely ignore what the people who made the sounds wanted you to do.
Everyone, this isn't going to sound great. Lies.
I mean, it can sound a lot better.
Right, yeah.
That would not sound good in a movie.
Yeah, no, that would, it would, there's a lot of times where he plays stuff and it's like, oh, that's fine. And then he actually plays it under the movie and I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work. Like that happens sometimes. And that's happened a few times in the past before you had good violin samples where you play me 3 notes through something and it's like, oh, yeah, that's great. We can go with it. And then...
But like that warble doesn't make sense on the piano.
No, it doesn't. Is there piano settings on this already? That you could kind of demonstrate what it would sound like if it was a piano?
Got a glockenspiel.
I do not know what that is.
Got a perky organ.
That's pretty strange.
I got a soap opera organ. Kind of like older era. The thing that's I should probably try to use on here at some point.
Joe wants you to do the glockenspiel. We stand a wooden boy.
It's got the JP8000, which is a synth.
That's if you want to sound like a Lady Gaga song.
I do think she uses that.
That's very
It's
Gaga.
got a J-pop.
J-pop. J-pop?
Brass.
Now, you can import these settings directly into the computer if you wanted to.
These, no. These are built in, and they do not want you getting them out.
So
I would record it through the audio out.
Okay.
But editing notes on this is different.
Okay.
I get the notes on here,
Yeah.
but if I change them, it's not going to play through here.
The animes.
It's got a lot of good, like... It's got a lot... It's a Roland, Japanese company.
Yeah.
Their Japanese instruments are the best on here.
Yeah.
They know exactly how they want it to sound, and they did not settle. The traditional Japanese instruments on here are the best sounding. Speaking
of that, you kind of went that direction with the Zen Garden scenes a little bit. Not directly, not so obviously, but was kind of the inspiration for that plucky synthesizer. This Zen kind of sound.
At some point.
I kind of remember us talking about that.
It's a glockenspiel.
That's the glockenspiel.
Mm-hmm. But see, you don't. That's not a thing that a glockenspiel can do. You can't do that on a glockenspiel. When I was playing saxophone a lot, they taught me how to double and triple tongue so you can play the notes quicker. Got a vibraphone?
If you want to yeah, you can't do that on a. You can't do that on a marimba.
No, it's a vibraphone, different instrument.
You do have a melodica in real
London
life.
Choir, we got the.
Also not possible in real life.
Yeah, that's a bit excessive. Like, you just need to know what you're going for.
I feel like you used some choral effects at some point because that's very Marcus. There's like Marcus's choral effects at some point, like a lot in the actual DBH score. And I want to say there's at least one point in this score that you.
So you think I used choral effects? What I did
Okay.
was I recorded the Novation Peak
Uh huh.
on one of the instrument settings. I don't even remember which one. Put a whole lot of reverb in there, and then just kept the reverb.
Just kept the reverb.
It's all just the wet reverb, no of the actual instrument.
That's fascinating.
So you get the like singing tones, but you don't have any of the instrument that made the tone.
Clever. Clever boy. Clever girl.
And that's kind of, I took that inspiration from Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer's Boom
Okay.
is essentially, he mic'd one string on a piano and dropped a Bible in a church.
Excuse me?
So it's on a stage. He dropped a big heavy book and it made the strings reverberate without hitting them with a hammer. And then he took off the initial thunk. So it's just the hum. It's the hum off of the shaking in the room going through the strings. He does not say it's the Bible, but it was recorded
It was probably a Bible.
It was probably a Bible.
Everybody's like, just, excuse me, what? Everybody's just very confused. He what?
So that Boom isn't a synth.
Oh, okay.
The Hans Zimmer.
So when they say that the Interstellar soundtrack was just Hans Zimmer falling asleep on an organ, it's not too far from the truth.
Now the organ was a synth because organs don't have dynamic control, and he wanted there to be dynamic control, and then he paid mostly attention to the high end of the dynamics.
Now a Bible is an instrument. But I think it is really interesting how you did those choral effects as just reverb of a synthesizer, because I'm trying to remember where
I had a nice instrument that was on my old computer, but the like licensing and moving it over got me real confused, and I was like, nah, not doing this anymore.
I don't remember where in the score there was that choral.
I didn't think of it as being a choral effect, so I don't really think about it that much.
Right.
But whenever there's just things that...
Maybe during the bar argument, it might have been somewhere in there.
It might have. If it was in the bar argument, that was literally just reverb.
Well, and also Tina Gavin's conversation in the hospital, I think, might have had a little bit of that.
A lot of reverb.
Yeah, a lot of that.
I have a lot of reverb.
That's one of my favorite tracks in the score.
So just I don't know if it's going to demonstrate very well, but I've turned off the guitar rig.
So we're just plucky violin
So
again.
just the plucky violin again. And I can add in TS.
So this is the difference between it natively and with reverb.
So it's got some natural reverb in there, of course, but let's throw the pre-delay up there. Let's make it a really long reverb time.
Pillow says, I use reverb like flex tape when doing anything musical.
Uh-huh.
That is Austin's secret as well.
That's everybody's secret. I'm always on reverb.
Oh, that's our secret when we do Twitch Sings, is just throw so much reverb on our voices we don't sound like complete garbo. Now, you did turn down the audio for the guitar, so you might want to go louder. There you go.
So, it's a little crackly because it's tracking. And if I... So this was really plucky at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like melt
Smooth
that
it
away.
out, yeah. So you don't have any gaps where it's just silence.
So that's dry. And I might put another reverb on top of this from a different group and just like pile on different reverbs until it's all just like choral. Like, there's some things that I can do to round off the attacks on things.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a bunch of stuff you can do. And then you're just like,
And then it fades
you can
out.
hear it still ringing. But that's another thing is I never like to cut off the reverb because it always sounds bad. And that is what everybody who does a fake 80s movie does wrong.
Got it.
There's no decay. It's all just like,
Yeah.
synths don't know. Like, that's not a great sound for a thing. Is this the...
Yeah.
That's better sounding. Like, let things fade.
Yeah. It sounds a lot more musical and not just like you're banging on keys.
Yeah. So that's another secret that everybody should know and not be a secret.
Reverb. It's the cure for everything.
There was no reverb in there, but just don't cut things off
Yeah.
ever.
Guess we all got to watch DE for the 25th time after this stream.
Oh, speaking of watching DE for the 25th time,
Uh-huh.
what time is it? We've been going for an hour.
So this is the part where we talk about the theory behind what you did.
Oh, do you want to talk about
What
theory?
were you? What direction were you going?
I was
in?
going to talk about the Easter egg that nobody seems to care about.
Ah, yes. Well, that goes along with it. We can start with that part. How about that?
All right. So what do you want me to do? You want me to like open?
we could
music?
look at the YouTube version because you don't have an actual. Well, you could look at the waves because that would maybe make it a little bit more obvious. But I don't know. Shit, I don't know where the second part of that secret is gonna be because I don't know where he actually says it at any point in the movie. Maybe the
We can
scene
just
in the
watch
couch.
it on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest thing.
Yeah. Well, I know that you can start with Ada's scene because this is an Ada Easter egg. Oh, it closed?
I guess it
I
did.
had it open.
I guess it did. Oh well, we can just go
YouTube. Detroit Evolution. Yeah, I know. Shut up.
I was like, I didn't make that mistake, did I?
Hey, pillow.
So this part
You
was
could
heavily...
probably get rid of that other webcam again.
Oh, fine. The opening here. Why'd it come back? This was heavily inspired by Bernard Herrmann.
Oh,
Uh,
who's Bernard Herrmann?
wrote Psycho music
Okay.
and like everything of that era. Anything that's got the cutout bass title screens, pretty much Herrmann.
Is this too loud, guys? It looks like it might be a little on the loud side.
It's the top one. I mean, we can.
Ada. We love Ada a normal amount. Say not loud. Okay, it's okay. So we don't have to adjust. So I think this is back like 5 minutes in ish.
Yeah. So we'll just start here. Yeah, this was me just hitting randomly kind of on here because it was correcting all of my out of tune notes.
Okay.
Because I fixed it to a key.
Uh-huh.
You're lucky no one was
This that
filming
you have, I don't think there's really
Last thing you
much
need is
music
to
in
get
this
fired
part, is
for
there?
assault.
No one's
No,
gonna
I
give a
just
shit of a
waiting
person
until she
that.
shows up.
Right. So when she walks in, it's a theme that I've named. My name is Ada.
Okay.
That's
Don't know what you name things, but
so it is what we would call her motif.
I
So
think you spelled that right. That would be
that
that'd
would be embarrassing if I hadn't. I mean, I could fix it in post because it was a visual effect. It wasn't live. That screen was done in post.
Yeah, but if you just published that,
Ooh, we're about to come up on it.
Good morning. Thank you for coming.
You the Jericho rep we spoke to on the phone?
Yes, my name is Ada. Welcome to New Jericho.
so one thing to talk about that is this is just 3 different timings of the same 4 notes, which
So it's like that do 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 do. Yep, there you go.
yeah, I know what it is. I played it a billion times.
Okay.
So one person I think asked me on my thing of questions what other songs inspired me or what other things was I thinking about, and I told you that I was going to use, so first part of the Easter egg, these are the opening notes to Piano Concerto No. 1,
Okay.
Tchaikovsky.
Okay. You love Tchaikovsky. He
I-
loves Tchaikovsky.
I love Tchaikovsky. 1, it's the opening 4 notes of that. Bump! There's a chord there.
Okay.
Anyway, Piano Concerto No. 1 was a cheeky reference to the fact that she's the first.
Oh, okay.
So that was the cheeky reference there.
Okay.
Nobody was going to get that because it's not
Oh,
enough.
no,
of-
that's such a deep cut.
that's it's also just, it's not enough.
Yeah.
Like, it's, and then I repeated constantly, it's not enough of Piano Concerto No. 1 for that to be a thing. Secondly, so you've got, and then under it you've got, which I think I played an octave lower, and I think there's another octave lower than that that's even longer, so those are like whole notes that carry through it. So
Okay.
it's got extra movement that you don't necessarily feel or hear, but it's all just the same notes. She only gets 4 notes for her theme, and it's the same 4 notes through the entire movie.
And then I think you switched to like other stuff here. So
Now this is all still her. It's just it's repetitive and interwoven a little bit, but it's still just the 4 notes.
okay.
What's your model number?
RK9.
This is the part where it's slowly going bum,
Like Marcus?
bum,
Yes, we're in the same model line.
bum.
Incredible.
And then you speed it up when you do the investigative, because yeah, I know that as soon as he opens
You got those
the evidence, it gets really fast and bassy and kind of investigative.
This is everything we have on the case. The victim's identification said she resided here, which is why.
So each of these camera cuts would have been a place where I put a marker to keep the speed right.
Okay.
Lisa, she was the only AC.
There were a lot of cuts in this scene.
What happened to her?
Yeah, it kind of messed with me, but
Yeah.
because sometimes it wasn't on the like 4.
Yeah.
What do you need from me?
Oh, most murder.
But when they're all sitting down like that and having a conversation, you kind of have to edit a lot to keep the tension, to keep it moving, because otherwise it just gets boring. It's just a bunch of people sitting around talking. I actually had that crisis of conscience at one point about Detroit Evolution. I was like, is this just a movie where people have conversations and nothing happens?
At least they're having conversations in different places.
I was just like, man, this movie's just talking like this.
So I want to go back a little bit,
Okay.
because the last 4 notes are also her notes. But there's some angry robot noises in there too.
Oh, okay. So I think if you jump to about 20 minutes when they're on the couch, or they're having that conversation, I think what you're talking about is going to be in that
I think
scene.
it's in here too.
I'm sure it's probably in there.
It's all over the freaking place.
I just know for a fact that and the music in that scene is a little more understated generally.
Worry about a sick girlfriend, do you?
Androids are systemically under.
I think
That was exactly where it was.
it's earlier than that.
Could still be out there.
If Ethereum.
I know we haven't tracked down the part yet, but it could still be out there.
If Ethereum Pump is a rare item, news would get out if it was made available on the market. Lotso mentioned his girlfriend needing maintenance, which is why he was purchasing the parts illegally. I wonder if the murderer killed because they needed Ethereum Pump, or else they'd shut down?
You don't believe his story about a sick girlfriend, do you?
Androids are systemically underpaid.
Hear that?
So whenever they say killer or murderer in the movie, it's followed with doon doon doon. You get the same every time. So anyone who's like just listening to the music and is like, that doesn't fit 100% in this scene.
everybody's shook.
So I was like, is that going to be too obvious? And I was like, nah.
Nah. Honestly, I really didn't. I knew it was there, and I couldn't really. It's very subtle.
And there's a lot of other things going on. It's a deep movie with enough attention being split, but it's just like every time they say killer, I beat that into you that that's her theme. Like the first time you see her and the entire time you see her, it's 4 notes repeating dun 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 dun. And then every time they say killer.
So in the DPD scene, it probably comes up. So do you think the killer could have black market motivations? You can't rule it out. So maybe it's there. We could see.
You know your movie better than I do.
Well, it's like a 10-minute mark, 12-minute mark, something like that. Probably as soon as he sits down.
Common drop sites for black market deals. Contacts. There are black market dealers who collude.
Oh, it would be before this.
I'll ensure he maintains a hostile enough disposition to still enjoy office gossip.
Good.
Yeah, it was just before where you landed. You can also listen for the Read 900 theme in this scene, which is in the background.
Thank God.
I hate you.
You love me.
Move your feet.
It's playing now.
Have you been reviewing the case?
You know me. When do I stop? The victim's an AC 900, right? That happens to be a model designed for athletics and endurance, so her Ethereum pump is one of the most valuable out there.
You think the killer could have black market motivations?
You can't rule it out. No, that would advance that.
Yeah, it was playing as he was
So,
saying it
what's up with
there.
that genius deduction?
Interesting.
Went through a list of my contacts in the Android parts market, and they got back to me with some
Yeah, this is actually
market deals.
very much the Read 900 theme underneath this whole scene. It's just a little bit more embellished.
Stay off their back.
Yeah, I tried to keep the same embellishment I was using in the
Sometimes
opening
you gotta bend the
screen,
rules if you wanna catch a big
the
fucking
opening
fish,
credits
right?
because this is still so close
It's
to
not your
it.
protocol or whatever, but that's why you got me.
Motion tracking stream flashbacks.
Yeah, I was looking at that. The wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
Wobble.
Got it. I have a database in my brain containing over 200,000 words in the English language, and I believe you found them.
Yeah, I don't think
Yourself.
Shut the fuck up.
we can skip to the next scene, the stakeout, and talk a little bit about that.
Oh, that's fun.
There's a couple different things in like the first half and the Lotso part.
This is a picture of.
The sky.
Binoculars aren't necessary. My vision can zoom up to 850%.
Yeah?
This is an adaptation to Working With You.
This is a remaster of a song from Detroit Awakening.
Believe me, Being
straight
aware
up.
of
Like, I
fact
don't think it's
holding
changed
a
at all,
shotgun
aside
car
from being
is questionable
re-recorded.
taste.
Asshole.
This is actually the not the opening song, but it's when you first
Don't
meet
worry.
Gavin and
Put
Nice.
it in our calendar. We'll be there.
Now,
Our calendar?
in the album
What?
Detroit Evolution, I changed the name of this track though to An Attraction to Working with You. So when we finally get that album out, that'll be what it's called.
Shit.
Now, if you skip to Lotso, there's an Easter egg in the Lotso scene for anybody who's familiar with other Octopunk
Of
works.
course, I'm referring to Ada.
You are truly appalling. She's aesthetically.
Yeah, I
pleasing.
chose not to put her theme when they said Ada,
'Cause it
but
would-
only when they said only when they would say killer or
Yeah,
murderer.
yeah. Because I think it would be actually obvious that you changed something about this song.
Yeah.
No contact.
I was. Feel something.
It's a long scene.
I know.
So Lotso, he completely cheated.
It was fun.
Completely cheated. He was like, "You're gonna hate me for this," and I was like, "What did you do?" And I knew it as soon as he showed me this fucking scene.
Good evening.
Oh, shit.
DPD. What are you up to tonight, kid?
Oh, just,
So, how many of you have seen Live Scream at this point, which was our first feature?
Care if we, take a look inside?
Because you can look up, if you Google Boppy Live Scream SoundCloud, you can play the actual original version of that for them.
You want me to do that?
Yeah.
I'd advise against that.
So that was Boppy played on the peak by itself instead of being played with multiple layers of this, because the peak can play 8 notes at a time, and this can only play 4.
Elia notices Live Scream. Yes, that is the opening theme from
Sputnik
SoundCloud Live Scream.
Live.
Because we do have the entire album of Live Scream on SoundCloud, if anybody wants to look at that. Ever. It's the whole album.
So it doesn't have the or any of that stuff, but it's just the notes of it.
Yeah. So, but it's the same. He cheated, like majorly cheated, because this is probably one of your proudest songs you've ever made.
Yeah, I cheated to make this song also because all it looks like is chords, like held out chords, but those chords are being played through the built-in arpeggiator. So it's playing the chords until it runs out of time to finish going through a riff, and then it starts over when the next one hits, which is fun. It's all fun.
So if you go to the opening minute or so, there's also a couple recycled riffs from Awakening. But you explain to me how you did this sound of the Sin Garden,
Ready to get to work?
because I
Reverb?
think this is the Reed 900 theme. This is the Reed 900 theme again, isn't it?
Just
Isn't this
bureaucracy
partners?
today. No dead
Yeah,
bodies.
Corpses may be easy.
this is like them walking down the hallway in Awakening.
This is when Nines delivers the food to Gavin's apartment.
Oh, that's before Gavin comes up. When Gavin shows up, it goes to
Breathe
partners, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
You are
And so
So
reverb, you say.
all the time.
I mean, it's mostly just
Brain.
pluck me, but
Mm-hmm.
with a little extra reverb on it.
Ideal world.
And then the Nines theme is in the protester scene. And for those who were not here for the Awakening music stream back in the day, you can kind of explain where this came from.
Yeah, so in the really subtle bassy background, it's got RK900 being spelled out in Morse code.
Right.
But in the top, it's just a little riff using a 9-note scale.
Mm-hmm.
A nonagonic
Which
scale.
ended up sounding ironically similar to Connor's theme. Like really close.
I mean, I was really trying to capture the Detroit soundtrack feel for Detroit Awakening, and I moved a little bit further away from it in Evolution.
Please not Chris's. I'm sorry, Morse code.
I was gonna use the Morse code thing for Ada, but RK100 and RK900 have very similar Morse code. Like, that's pretty much the same thing.
Maybe Color Steam was just RK800 Morse code. I don't know. You'd have to.
It's not.
Okay, so fight scene. What were you thinking here?
I was thinking, oh my god, this movie comes out tomorrow.
That's true. I remember. Yeah, I do remember that. I do remember that. That's what I thought when I was editing it. Was, oh fuck, I don't have time to finish the sound on this. We're just gonna have to roll with it.
So we got basically a bunch of angry robot noises.
From the peak, probably.
Mostly from the peak. The drums are also arpeggios being played through the peak, but they're playing noise instead of, like, white noise.
Yeah.
Instead of tones. You get a lot of Ada's, but very slow and ominous. Dun, 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 dun. But it feeds into the Nines theme.
Okay.
Because when it gets to the bottom, it starts to go back up with dun, 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 dun.
Dun 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 dun.
Body will be useless to her.
I don't think Gavin really had a motif.
No, he's kind of...
Because we wanted to, but it just kind of never happened.
He's got a little bit of a motif when he's talking about his sad stories and stuff, but...
I'll say this is slow. Just like, I sped it up to 130%. It looks fast to me. It looks ridiculously fast.
I didn't see what you started with, and that's the thing that nobody sees is what... How much work went into something. They only see the end product.
I want to re-edit this for the Blu-ray. I want to do the upgrade treatment to it and really do a lot of cuts and stuff. I'm gonna take another crack at it. I ran out of time.
But their fight choreography is disturbingly close to upgrade. It just doesn't have the same camera angles and movement.
It's definitely a post issue. It's not a choreography issue. Everybody says it's a choreography issue. It's not the choreography that's the problem. It's the post. It's a combination of edits and the camera angles we were able to get and sound design and sound balancing, all of which went to complete shit in like the last 3-4 days before the movie came out. So yeah, I want another crack at this. I think I can make this better.
Anyway, this is like... You just get a lot of angry robot noises while they're fighting. But a fun...
when she deviates.
Her...
We'd love to see Gavin get yeeted. Always. Yeah. My favorite part of this film. My OC is just a hot personification of my personal issues.
You're bluffing. You're too guilty to kill another android. It's all over your scan. Look, your hands are short.
Bang.
Bang.
So the last notes are her theme, which you don't hear anymore after this. This
is Nine's theme, isn't it?
This is Nines being awoken in the very opening scene
of Detroit Awakening.
This is Marcus's...
This is You're Awake Now. Oh, I never realized that.
Yeah, I never told you that, so... But it's that...
Yeah.
All of that stuff is...
That's fascinating.
This is the part where I actually went back to find the DA noted ones, and I was like, what sounds right with this?
You don't have to follow your programming.
Aren't all OCs just trauma but pretty? Yep.
I heard a shot.
It's alright.
The theme of waking up.
You're safe.
And then you just kind of have some ambient music here.
I mean, this is still that.
Yeah.
This is just, it doesn't have Nine's theme in there. It doesn't get angry.
Oh.
I didn't see it before, but now I do.
So you just kind of keep the atmosphere of it.
Yeah, it's just the atmospheric undertones of You're Awake Now.
Go to the coma scene. Because, so Gavin does not have a, it's much later. It's like 52 minutes, something like that. maybe 50 minutes.
Why didn't anybody come back to my party? Oh, let's talk about this.
Oh, yes, yes. So this is fascinating. This alley stuff. How the hell did you do this? Because this has got such a distinct sound. Because this is all in the music. This was not my sound design.
So, I don't think that this was meant to be used this way.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Lovely still. Love Jill. Just like, I'm gonna move on from that.
These are a bunch of old, like, mechanical toys that have been recorded.
By you?
Not by me.
Okay.
They were part of Contact. It was one of their, like, free sets for, like, okay, you downloaded Contact.
Mm-hmm.
Let's fill up your computer with a bunch of junk.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, like, wind-up toys and things. A few, like, old electronic robots that would walk around, those sort of things.
Okay.
And I dropped them. I copied the MIDI file from the notes, and I played them with the theme's MIDI file.
So you played their themes through an instrument that sounded like mechanical toys, or opposite?
I played their theme into, instead of playing instruments, it was triggering mechanical toys.
Okay. Odd.
So that's why it's all like,
I mean,
really...
I can hear Nine's theme in it, the da 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 da.
And I
like,
did play that manually. Like I recorded that manually. It's not just on the beat. So it's a little warped like that.
Although I don't know if I remember Nine's theme being in there. I don't remember Ada's theme.
I think it's Nine's theme. I don't
It's just Nine's theme. Interesting. And then, but what about once Gavin shows up? Why is there always somebody doing bloody yard work?
Because nobody goes to work anymore. Except for me.
All morning they've been doing yard work out there. Like, are your hedges done yet?
Not.
So this is just very staticky.
Where's Ada? What the hell
Some of this was my sound. That static was my sound design, but this part's not.
Hey, stay with me. Stay with me, asshole. Come on.
If your damn cursor.
Hey. Oh, don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Hey, Nines, come on. You're a Terminator, right? That means you can survive. You can survive anything.
And that fading sound of him kind of shutting down, that was sound design. That was me. But the rest of this is all Austin. So is this the same principle, the mechanical toys?
No, this was some other, like, recorded guitars, I think. It blends a guitar and a synthesizer on top of each other. So it's just some weird plug-in.
Was this the Moog?
No, this was all Peak.
Wow. He really did use the Peak for such a big part of this.
The Peak is much better at just, like, raw sound design.
Yeah.
Those glassy noises are like anything that's too digital to be made in an analog synthesizer.
I mean, this definitely sounds very, like, cyberpunky and very futuristic, for sure. Especially as this scene ends.
Yeah, these are, like... They're actually, like... I think this is some note theme, but the decay on each of the notes is so long that it overlaps the other ones, so you don't hear where it starts or stops.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do with Ada in the Zen Garden? Because I think you did something.
I did something funny.
You did something weird with this.
I can't.
I did a couple weird things. I made the birds chirp backwards.
I
in all of the corrupted Zen garden scenes. But I thought you also fuck up.
I think I put music in when
Can't hurt me, Nines. I'm not the
Gavin
real
walks in.
I'm just a
In the
copy of
Gavin deletion scene, yeah.
Ada is out there, fulfilling her purpose.
Wow, that coma lasts a while.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like it does, but you were there. There you go. That's a good place. Yes, the birds chirp backwards in this scene.
Hey, Tin Can.
And all of, Zen Gavin's glitchy sounds, that was me. But the actual music is Austin.
What did she do to you?
Code's all buggy from Ada.
So
You gotta
I
do
took the recording
Delete
from the
all,
beginning.
Start from scratch.
Like I rendered out that recording.
I can't do that.
I dropped it into this scene, and then I opened up Guitar Rig again.
I can't just erase
But the only effect that I put in on it was what they call a
Doesn't
ping.
even have to be a garden. Hell,
I
Ada
can't hear this.
You've heard the movie. You know what it is.
Look.
It's
You don't have to
distorted.
know shit about me.
But it's what's called a ping pong delay, where they record it going forward and then it rewinds itself back for a period of time, and then you have the notes going forward again, and then it's being played backwards on top of itself again. And I think in the Guitar Rig I could understate the forward part of it, so most of what you're hearing is it playing back for a couple seconds, and then it going 2 seconds ahead, playing back a second, going 2 seconds ahead. So it's like clips of it, like each measure being played backwards, a measure late.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like it's being rewound, but you still can hear the normal melody through it. Now all these staticky noises, that was my sound design, so that was in the version that I gave you for Picture Lock.
But something that you can kind of see as just a little bit of an explanation of what's going on. If we go back. The first one doesn't have any. The first measure doesn't have anything to play backwards because it hasn't heard anything yet.
Yeah.
So the first measure is played normally.
Yeah.
What did she do to you?
Code's all buggy from Ada.
His voice is pale and useless. Isn't this that type of noise that sounds amazing with surround sound? Somebody said that the alley pans.
Oh yeah, I put a lot of panning in things like. Along with the ping ponging, it ping pongs in a pan as well.
Yeah, so if you're listening through headphones or surround sound, you can hear it go from left to right, from left to right. It feels more immersive than just coming at you in one direction. I don't know how many times I've watched this with music with headphones, so I actually have never noticed that you did panning effects on this film until somebody pointed out to me that in the alley specifically. So that's cool. I'll have to keep an eye on it the next time I watch it.
And for there's several scenes where I have multiple instruments. If they were orchestral instruments, I arranged them with slight panning for the violins would be on one side and the cellos would be on the other. They don't overlap each other.
It ping pongs in a pan. I'm trying to understand this stream, but yeah, so panning is when you go from your left ear to your right ear or from one speaker to another if it's surround sound.
Which is how filmmakers should be able to remember this is a pan.
Yeah, because you're moving from left to right. You're not moving in and out. That's a dolly.
You don't pan in.
You don't pan in. That's so amateur. Now I gotta watch it with good headphones, yeah. Sound wave benders, yes. Emotional static is something that can be so personal. So yeah, let's go to the coma scene and talk a little bit about the reason, because this is a request I made, because I think the coma scene was like one of the last scenes
What
you
part of the coma scene are we talking about?
from the beginning is fine.
I-
From his actual speech. I want to focus on
This part?
this scene, yes. So, one of the things from Detroit Awakening, from the very beginning, is that I always wanted Nines to be emphasized with a synthesizer and for Gavin to be emphasized with the electric guitar. In Connor's themes, the violin is kind of representative of humanity in Nima Fakara's score. But because this is Read 900, I felt like if you did electric guitar where you would normally have done violin, you would have more of a synthesis between these two characters. So whenever we could have something that focused on Gavin, I liked if you could use the electric guitar. So I think this was my idea, that when we were doing the coma scene, I was like, do this in electric guitar, because this is such a Gavin-centric scene that really captures his character. And there's not very many scenes in this film that are the guitar. I think it's this one, it's the rooftop, and maybe the bar fight a little bit.
A little bit.
But that's kind of we'll go to that next, because I don't know what you were thinking when you made that bar fight scene. I'm curious to hear your thought process on that, because that was one I liked it and I just put it in. I didn't really think about the kind of thought process of it.
So yeah, this is just the peak being plucked again, but fed through the guitar rig.
And we had to be careful with this too because of that heart rate monitor in the background. You literally have this scene on a metronome. And so we had to make sure that did not clash with whatever you were composing, because that could have really easily happened, is that it could have sounded really odd if the steady beat of the heart monitor did clash with the music.
I'm trying to remember, did I know that there was a heart rate monitor in this?
Yes, you did. I think the version that I gave you had it in it. I think it did. Was this a different track that was just an electric guitar? I thought you composed this custom for this scene. I don't think you cheated. I think this was done from scratch.
It's partially from scratch.
Okay.
I mean, I would write out the themes as kind of plain notes, like no time or anything on them. They're just like circles and dots to keep me in doing the right thing. That way I could play on the saxophone controller if I needed to, or I could play on the pads here. And not have to like think too much about it. I can also just read and let it go. But I would go like back a few and just stay in those notes. I liked jazz, and that's how I played jazz. So,
So yeah, the bar fight, which is about here, yeah.
Is this the part where I remind you smoking will kill you?
No. It's the part where you mind your damn business.
I see you're still in a mood.
It's not a mood. It's me. Could have got onto that by now.
I know exactly.
so this is
what you
basically
want. You're a good man,
him talking about
but I can't help you if you lash out
the
instead
after
of
the
letting me in.
the morning.
Help me.
Oh, this is the same thing from the morning. Well,
No, this is the night. Like
oh, this is the nightmare. What you did at the nightmare scene.
Pretty much.
So this is essentially what you would call kind of Gavin's theme. Okay.
Is me. This is what you get. It's only a matter of
I mean, it's really just partners but sad, I guess, and
More
slow.
than that, at this point,
Interesting.
What you don't want to accept is that no matter how hard you try to push me away, I'm not going anywhere.
I hate to wreck your
I hear that now, yeah.
People, they don't change.
Now, if we actually go to the fight in the morning after, we can kind of talk about
Is that why you have a problem with
that theme.
Because she's an android and you haven't
C-
changed?
because the morning after is a recycled theme from Awakening. I think it's the break room
Bother.
scene
I don't need
music.
It might be partially, but
But we always used that in scenes of tension.
that was one of the few parts where I actually had the Moog
Uh-huh.
right after he blew the smoke.
Yeah.
Told me I could be interned at the TPD for a while. There's something to do.
That is pretty similar. Okay.
Sounds like a happy ending.
But I mean, basically I stayed in the keys, and I kind of taught myself some muscle memory, and then I recorded this like 18 times and picked the ones that sounded good.
Bleed in the fucking snow. No one cares.
Like I would teach myself which muscles, like movements on this little 4x4 pad sounded happier or sadder or whatever.
And then we're switching to the Reed 900 theme.
Yeah.
But it's different a little bit. Oh, it's not quite coming together. That's right. We talked about that. It's like broken until they hold hands.
Mm-hmm.
Like the actual theme, it just doesn't quite come together until they do.
It's also like, it's in a different mode.
Mm-hmm.
So things that would be minor are major, and vice versa in certain situations. I think I might have been playing the theme, but I adjusted the grid so that I wasn't playing on the notes I was supposed to be playing on.
Mhm.
If you tell anybody about this, I'll have you scrap for parts.
And then if anything didn't work, I would manually just move it.
Hey, it's the stupid boy graduate scene. I was a stupid boy graduate. Red peanut to soft ice cream or whatever the hell that is. So
Chartreuse!
Chartreuse. So yeah, so this scene,
This is so loud.
it is so loud. All these things I'm gonna try to fix in the Blu-ray, which is why the Blu-rays aren't done yet, because I got to like re-edit the movie. Ugh.
You're still here?
Why wouldn't I be? Made breakfast, actually. Eggs and toast, like you usually have.
So this is the first song you hear in the film during the disclaimer, during the content warning and the opening logo. But it's in a little.
But yeah, now I've moved it down.
You've moved it down. But this is the theme that always plays during tension, and this is recycled from Detroit Awakening. This is when Nines delivers the food to
I
Gavin.
need you to leave. Just meet me at work, okay? Just wipe everything from last night from your brain.
I'm not leaving because you regret having acted like a person.
Get out!
Scram!
You can see the mic pack in that scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For who?
For Maximilian.
Oh, shit. I've never noticed that.
The antenna's coming out of his pocket.
Oh.
Look, it's Buick.
Well, oh, and then there's your Ada theme again.
Oh yeah.
The interviews, all the context that you gave us from Jericho, we're reviewing the notes now to see if there are any themes.
Nines and I looked into the local black market. Nothing turned up. Keep looking.
Yes.
This is in a couple different like keys because
Yeah.
it's not all about Ada.
Last night,
Yeah,
I saw a pattern that I previously
but it's much faster. Interesting.
Mhm.
Let's see what else we got.
Android
Let's go to the reunion and talk a little bit about that, because this scene is the only scene in the film. If you could go to about the moment Nines walks in. This is like the only scene that has violin.
Maybe.
Yeah. Let's do that.
And that was conscious. I wanted this to be similar to the temp track I was using.
This is where I found out that you can't just drop a piano in that.
Undead.
But
asshole.
The way
How'd
that
you
it
wake up?
records MIDI,
I heard
like I
you.
just dragged the part where it was pitch bends and deleted it.
Oh.
Damn,
So
you-
I could
you-
keep
you
my
heard
notes,
everything
but I
I said?
just deleted the
Yeah,
bending.
so we started with just a synth piano.
Force.
Probably a sampled piano or from the peak.
It's a sample piano.
Okay.
You love me.
Sobbing into my peanuts next is art night. Everybody's just yelling the Detroit Voot lines. Undead butt.
Undead Bud.
And then here's your cello?
It's a whole string section.
It's basically a whole string section with piano. This is like multi-layered. This is one of the most multi-layered tracks you have. But this was played with the saxophone controller, and you can tell because of the way it all fades together like that.
There's not very many electronic or piano or any of those sort of instruments, string instruments even, like plucked strings, that can get louder after you start the
Yeah.
note. So,
Yeah.
especially in like an organic controlled way.
What
Is
dipshit
there
told me to
any
do that?
synthesizer in
fancy
here?
Android
As far as like
Oh,
something
you
that's
were such a
intentionally meant to
fucking
sound
prick. Takes
electronic?
one to know one.
Is it the bass line?
Yeah,
This
there's
is
some bass in
my
there.
jacket.
There's some Moog in there, it sounds like.
Did it Cyberlife? They didn't keep my
Probably.
clothes. So you've been making progress without me?
Yeah,
So I'm not sure
so
how
we got some
much
catching up to do.
that got noted, but because that line got cut,
Oh, what?
this is Tina's shirt.
Yeah,
Like, was that really?
I cut it.
Yeah, you cut that. Has that been discussed?
By whom?
Anybody? Does anybody know that that's Tina's shirt?
Yeah, I've put the script on Patreon, and yeah, we've talked about it.
All right.
Yeah, I did cut that line though, but it's in the script. And we shot it. I mean, I have. Oh, you know, what it ended up in is the behind the scenes, the one take of this that we did this scene. We did. You could see in the one take and the uncut footage that line was delivered. So if you're curious what that line is like, you can go watch the behind the scenes of the reunion scene video on YouTube. There were a couple lines that were. What?
I'm making sure that I actually answer the questions that.
Oh,
people
that
gave
were on
me.
Instagram. So yeah, he threw up some questions on Instagram or an ask box on Instagram. So we'll go through those and see. Wow, you got a lot of questions. Okay, what do you got?
I talked about musical inspiration, like
Yeah.
that was a couple classical pieces of music, like Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto No. 1, and I listened to some random synth music on Sirius XM when I got a new car.
Apparently our movie audio is a little low, so I don't know if we're going to go back to that, but go ahead and boost that a little just for the future.
Oh, you didn't like it being loud.
It looked kind of loud on the... There you go. Okay. But yeah, breakdown of repeating themes. We kind of went through the Read 900 theme and the Ada theme and whatever Gavin's kind of was, as well as the Nines theme, and then the Detroit Awakening stuff that got recycled multiple times, and like in what ways it got recycled.
There's a question about how similar it was for writing for DA versus DE. The thing about DA was I had to start from scratch.
You also did not have the squid. You did not have the
Yeah,
saxophone controller. You didn't have either of those two synthesizers, and you did not have a functional computer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that made it easier, and there's also just when you're writing for a feature-length film, the amount of extra effort is kind of disproportionate to the amount of time.
Yeah.
Because if you're writing something for a short film, you have to come up with a theme that you're all going to shove into this 15-minute thing. And when you have a longer movie, you still just come up with the same themes, and it becomes more about tweaking. So it only takes a little bit of extra work to make something for a longer movie.
Yeah.
If I was to make, this is like an hour and 15 minutes, so that's like, what, six Detroit Awakenings?
5, yeah.
So if I was to do 5 shorts, that would take a lot longer.
Yeah.
If I had 5 shorts that had to come out at the same time versus doing one long movie, just because of how, like, reuse of themes and, like, you want motifs. Once you get your motifs, you can reuse them.
Yeah.
So that's what...
Or you can steal your theme song from a previous movie that you made, like in the case of Buffy.
Yeah. Talked about, I guess, most of the Easter eggs. Anything that I didn't talk about, I don't remember anymore. It's been a while. How long did it take to write the soundtrack?
He thought about it for a really long time before he actually sat down and did anything. That was his thing. He was like, I was like, Austin, we got a month before this movie comes out. Like, you should have composed like 10 tracks by now. And he was like, I've been thinking about it a lot. I got to think about it before I actually do. I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'm like 90% of the way there. I just haven't, it's all my brain. I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, okay. And the movie still got finished the day before. But you did chug along pretty fast. You were much less stressed than I was the week we finished, because you did not have to stay up for 3 straight days fighting Adobe Premiere crashing every 5 seconds to finish.
I would sleep for a few hours, come back to it, and you would be sitting in the same spot pretty much. So that...
Yeah. And
the last few days, I didn't sleep a lot.
But you were okay. You were still able to go to bed. I think you did have to take a couple days off work.
I took a few days off
Although
of work
we already had
because I was planning on it.
We already had Thursday and Friday off because we were supposed to go to New York for the premiere. So you already had Thursday and Friday off of work. So you just used those days to work on the movie. But I mean, you've composed, I guess, 4 or 5 scores for me at this point. I would say you were the least stressed during this one than you have been ever before.
I still went through the same, like, existential
I remember
crisis.
the nervous breakdown about 2 weeks before, and I talked you through it, and you got over that hump. But once you were actually, coming down to the wire, and it's like, okay, I'm going to work on this scene, and then you showed me what you had, I was very happy with it. And a lot of times he'll show me stuff, and maybe it won't be finished, or maybe it's about half finished and I won't like it, and I'll tell him to throw it out and start over, or maybe I think he can work with it and then he'll work on it longer, and then it turns out it doesn't work, you gotta throw it out, and then he's even more pissed because he put in 40 hours for it or some shit. But with this, it was like, no, he showed me everything, and I was like, there were a couple tweaks. I know that the scene that we had to go back and retweak the most, I think, was scene 7 in the DPD. The scene where they're going over the case at Gavin's desk, which you wouldn't think, that's not a very complicated scene, but the first track you gave me for that was very, like, kind of dark, and I didn't love... I was like, this is a flirtatious scene. This needs to be kind of cute in the music. It shouldn't be so serious. You don't weigh down the playfulness of their dialogue with serious music. So he just went back and did the Read 900 theme.
Yeah, playful dialogue about people being murdered and sold on the black market.
But they are teasing each other through that scene. So it was supposed to really establish for the first time the flirtation in real life between them. So that was one I sent him back to redo, I think, twice, and it was fine by the end. So we stuck with that. And then the opening title, I remember the first time it was a little over composed, and then we pulled back on like one layer of it, and then I was happy. So that one didn't take a whole lot of tweaking.
I have to learn a new language when we're talking about music. Well, she's telling me what she does or doesn't like, because she'll say the piano's bad, and I'm like, there's not a freaking piano in this.
I know. It's learning to communicate in the same language when it comes to not knowing any of this stuff as a director and not being a musician myself in any capacity has been a hurdle that we still work on. But
it's particularly fun when you're so confident that you know what something is. Like, take out the sub fatty, and I'm like, there's not even a synth in this.
Yeah, I don't know how you do what you do, but it's just like, I'm just like, what is that chunky sound? And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, what on earth are you saying to me? Because yes, we speak in different languages for sure. But in this case, it was.
It sounds too red.
It sounds too red.
That's basically what I'm listening to, and I'm like, and I know you're not a synesthete or whatever.
No, I do not have synesthesia. So yeah, but in the case of, but I often know what I want.
Sounds too much like a rabbit. What?
I know what I want things to feel like. And for this scene in particular, I knew that I wanted violin because the temp track that I was using, all the temp tracks that
And that is why she's no longer allowed to have temp tracks.
that I edited the film to were all from Detroit Become Human. And the scene, the temp track that I used for this was a Kara song that is used when they're taking shelter at the carnival right before the Jerrys show up, I think. Or no, maybe it's Rose's house. It's the song that plays when Kara goes to Rose's house. It's a beautiful song that's very, very heavy on violin. And I just got very used to that being the background music for this. And Deviance from Connor's theme was what I used during the nightmare scene, and I got very used to that as well. So I just really wanted violin because it was so romantic. Like, it was very, very romantic. I think we did do a version of this at first that we had to change, though. I feel like this was your second crack at this because I thought that there was something you did that did not work with this, that wasn't on point. But I don't remember anymore.
I don't remember that, which probably means that I put something with minimal effort just so that I could say that I had something.
And I was like, yeah, this is... Maybe I heard it before reverb or something like that, or I heard it before the bass line.
You might have heard it before I put in the violins from the actual violin pack. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah. Do you have any other Instagram questions?
I mean, they're all kind of there's a lot of like, what's your inspiration, what's your workflow, and I feel like...
Yeah, we've kind of been through that.
It's hard to, like, I tried to answer that one in text, and I don't know how to say, like, I put markers, and then I stretch the time, and then some of that's tricky.
I don't think it was I Am Kara. I don't think that was the temp track. I cannot remember. I'll tell you that Little One was the temp track that I used on the rooftop and during the coma scene. Another Kara track. That was the coma scene in the rooftop was the very cute piano only Kara theme called Little One. It was I really liked using that. Although I did use Kara's normal theme, just the sort of standard Kara theme you know of, for the final kiss, which was a really nice note to end the movie on. But I mean, at this point, I can't even imagine the movie with any other music than yours. And I remember when I listened to this movie the first time with the music, I felt it. You just don't feel like the movie is cohesive until you have an original score, because he used the same instruments and the same, brain for the whole movie, and it really pulls the whole film together, not only as a film, but also to Detroit Awakening. I felt like it was very tied to Detroit Awakening for the first time when I heard it with the music, because it felt like, okay, this is our DBH universe. This ties it together and makes it feel like it belongs connected to that. What is a Mother? What is a Mother? That was the temp track for this kiss scene. Austin, do you have a particular favorite track or musical moment in this film?
I don't know.
Okay, you're thrilling. I would say mine is probably this one. Or possibly... I really like the Tina and Gavin hospital.
I know you do.
It's one of the most professional, just really good sounding, it sounds really, really, really cinematic. I don't know why, but there's just something about it that sounds very, very cinematic. I like the one outside the bar. I mean, that one also is great. I think all the Zen Garden stuff is fun.
One of the things that does make it a little hard is I don't want the music to get boring or repetitive, and some of these scenes are really long.
Yes.
Like there are scenes that are almost an entire Detroit Awakening long.
Yeah. The nightmare scene is 5 minutes.
And I'm just like, I can't just keep repeating the same riff.
Bye, Joe. Thanks for coming. The other thing that I can ask you, because I was going to point this out earlier, how do you deal with scenes that have a lot of dialogue?
I don't.
Like, as a composer, you can't just make something that sounds good. You have to make something that doesn't overwhelm the scene. So what is kind of the trick for making sure that you're elevating the dialogue and supporting the dialogue instead of drowning it?
It can be tricky with a diverse cast of speaking tones. But usually I just try to stay out of the frequency range of whoever's talking. But like Maximilian really eats up the bass.
Yes.
And the female voices tend to occupy higher, and then other people's voices will fill out other places. So when you have like a room full of people, it's like, you know what, you get some plucks that are randomly placed. I'll also try to, it's the same thing they do when you listen to like music on the radio. Whoever's singing will sing their lines, and it's almost like nothing going on musically, and then you get 4 seconds of a guitar riff, and then it goes back to them saying their words. You try to fit the music in between words.
I'll call you in about 3 Detroit Awakenings. A new measurement of time. Did Austin compose the bar music? No, that was stock music, and luckily I have not been copyright tagged for it. Austin also did not compose the credits music. We ran out of time, so I used stock credits music. The movie got ate up with ads, took it off because I wanted this movie to be ad-free for legal reasons, and also because eating it up with ads was really gross.
I mean,
and
it's going to eat up ads. It may as well go to the not...
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous that like 30 seconds of someone's music,
Stock music that I paid the license.
yeah, but even so, like, this is an hour and 15 minutes, and like less than a minute of someone else's music eats up the entire thing with ads.
It's like 7 ads.
And all of those ad revenue goes to that person.
Yeah.
And it's probably not even a person, it's probably some entity that decided to license that music once and then said it's theirs.
Yeah. And that's, I'm noticing a lot of my behind the scenes stuff now. I have to be very careful. Like, stuff is retroactively getting registered onto YouTube. Like the credits music from Detroit Awakening. Detroit Awakening now has ads on it because the credit song that's been on there for a year, I guess the artist decided to register it with YouTube now, so it got pinged. And it's really, really annoying because it's difficult for me to be able to monetize even my behind the scenes stuff as a YouTube partner because I'm dealing with this stock song that I paid to license royalty free. I can't monetize my video with it because the artist of this royalty free stock music, who's already getting my money when I pay to license it, now also wants to get all of my ad rev too. Oh, I could go off on a whole rant about this. So it's really irritating. I know a lot of people like that stock sound in the credits. When I do the Blu-ray, maybe I'll get you to compose something, or I guess I'll just restore it because it doesn't matter because it's the Blu-ray, so who cares? It's not going to be ad rev. And as far as the Blu-ray goes, I can announce this for the first time. So there's only 15 people currently getting Blu-rays. They're people who donated $250 or more during the pre-production process of the film in order to become co-producers of the film. But there is going to be another way to get your hands on a Blu-ray if you want. Obviously, I can't sell them because that would be, that's illegal. I can't make money. I can't manufacture this movie. This is not my intellectual property. But as part of the charity stream next Saturday from noon to 7 for Gamer X, donate a certain amount of money, which I'll be, on Opwu this Monday. If you want all the details of this, go to Opwu. But if you donate a certain amount of money, and supplies might be limited depending, because there are manufacturing costs, you can get a Blu-ray as a reward for the charity stream. So keep that in mind if you're interested in getting a Blu-ray version of this film, which will have a slightly changed, slightly upgraded, remastered edit that I'm working on. It'll have bonus features. It'll have a director's commentary and that sort of thing. You know, all of that. So I think, if you've been looking forward to maybe having an opportunity, it's not going to be cheap, I'll tell you that, because like I said, people paid $250 to get it originally, so I want to honor the fact that, you know, they spent a lot to get their hands on a Blu-ray before, but the co-producer benefit that was $250, it came with more than a Blu-ray. It came with other perks and stuff too. So I will be lowering that down. It won't be $250 donation that you'll be required to make to get your hands on that to GamerX next Saturday, but it's not going to be $20. It's going to try to be commiserate with what portion of that producer donation was what I kind of consider to be the Blu-ray. So look forward to that. And of course, you know, all of that money, it doesn't go to me, it goes to the charity, it goes directly to GamerX. So we're hoping that that'll be a good way to inspire you guys to donate and support the cause next Saturday. And also speaking of next week, like I said, OPWU is on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll be going over other activities and folks that might be on the charity stream, as well as the goals that we're going to have, the different perks, if we meet what our goal is for the overall stream of raising money. Also, there'll be milestones and stretch goals for things that we will do on the stream if we meet our goals, like as a group, as well as individual donation prizes that you guys can earn through donating certain amounts of money. So all that information will be on OPWU on Monday. Tuesday, we're going to continue The Last of Us, and then Thursday, we're going to be doing Dead by Daylight with a few friends of ours. So we've got a really cool stream schedule coming up next week. And then next Saturday, we are going to be doing the charity stream in this time slot instead of a normal Detroit Evolution stream. As well, Pillow or Neb or JJ or Sylvia, whoever's around, if you could throw also the Black Lives Matter charity links in the chat right now. I mentioned this on OPWU, I believe, this week. We now have stream elements for some really cool causes to support right now. I think one of them is North Star Health Alliance, which is to support the medics of the protest. There's also the Community Bail Fund archive, where you can find bail funds near you and support those, as well as the Equal Justice Initiative, which has a 100% rating on the Charity Watch. It's a really highly rated charity in both transparency and where they allocate their money. It is a foundation for supporting racial justice and equality in the criminal justice system. So if you feel like getting a head start on supporting a good cause, those are great ones to support, and that's in the link right now as well. I think that's it for us today, unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
I was going to talk about angry robot noises because I use them.
Okay, we can finish on angry robot noises.
So,
what up? Get your other webcam up there. Because I can't, we can't see.
Yeah. This up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to see if it's like indexed properly.
Okay.
But while I'm looking for it, the basic concept is usually what they call a sample and hold, which is just a timer that goes, and it'll look for a source, but what we do is we give it the noise, just white noise, so static, which gives it'll look at, like, static's just a bunch of ups and downs on a waveform. It's basically random, so it picks out random sounds, and depending, there we go. I've been
Malevolent AI.
Yep, that's angry robots. So basically, we've got LFO1 here is I'm just holding a button. You
Okay.
don't have to look at that too much. So you'll have a sample and hold, and you can see based on how bright it is, it's picking different amounts of like volume.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of looking at volume, it's changing it to pitch. And if I move my filter, based on where this filter is, gives it a wider range of random notes to pick.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have the filter all the way closed, the only notes that are getting through right now are very low ones. All of the high
And it's
notes
very bassy.
are getting eaten up.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we get the higher notes. I can do this opposite where we only have high notes and we add in the low notes. Or I can pick a band of just an area of notes. So that's how we get those angry robot noises. When I need it to be angrier, I open up the filter.
Mm-hmm.
We can also throw in overdrive and distortion.
Oh my god, that's loud. So you just play with knobs until it sounds angry.
Yeah, and this can be fed the same BPMs from Reaper. You can actually just you can hold multiple notes. You don't have to beat it. You can just hold them down.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of this kind of feels like you're cheating, but I guess it feels like you're cheating when you realize what you're doing. And that's the difference in like a good score and a meh score is how much you know you're cheating.
All right, well, that's all we've got for today. Like I said, we've got the cool Scream schedule coming up. You can follow me on Twitter to keep an eye on it and be reminded of it. And we'll see you on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern with Octopunk Weekly Update.
Well, they'll see you.
They'll see me. They'll see me. As always, stay great, hydrate, have a happy time zone. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
You have to hit the stop stream yet. There you go.
I can hit it.